If there's any culture that knows how to make good food, it's the folks down in Louisiana. In front of me, I have half a cup of milk and 1/8 a cup of butter. We are going to take the cube, drop it into the milk, and then we are going to microwave this in 45-second increments until it gets warm, not boiling, melts, and gets all mixed together. Okay, that took just over 1 minute, and there is the result right there. We're going to put that off to the side, let it cool down a bit. Next up, I have a kettle of warm water. It's been heated to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to fill it up to 1/3 of a cup. Then I'm gonna add in a 1/2 tablespoon of sugar, stir that together, and then I'm going to add 1/2 a packet of active dry yeast. We're just gonna stir it until things get cloudy, and then after that, we're gonna set it off to the side for about 10 minutes. The yeast will activate, the water will get foamy, and that's when we know it's ready. Let's make good use of our idle time. We're gonna add 2.5 cups of flour to a bowl. And like with every baking recipe that I do, I'm gonna be very imprecise with many of my measurements. Okay, that's roughly 2.5 cups. Listen, you gotta learn to have good instincts, all right? You gotta learn when things are too wet, things are too dry, when you've messed things up beyond all hope and you need to start over. You know, the important stuff. A teaspoon of salt, 1/4 cup of sugar, and then whisk it all together. Now this next ingredient is not traditional. This is my twist on things. I'm gonna add less than 1/4 teaspoon of ground up star anise. The spice is very strong, so I do not want to add a lot of it. And I got this idea from Oaxacan Day of the Dead bread, pan de muerto. Okay, our liquids are definitely ready to go, so I'm gonna make a small well in the center of the mound of flour. Look at our yeast. Oh boy, that's a big boy. All right, pour that in there. Get our milk and our butter in there as well. I could use my KitchenAid for this, but lately I have just been more of a fan of mixing together dough by hand. And with the dough kind of clumpy, I am now going to add in the most valuable substance in all of America, an egg. This thing cost me $5, not really. Everyone is feeling the pinch at the grocery store. It's terrible, I hate it. And I totally goofed. I was supposed to add vanilla extract, but I can add that now. 1 teaspoon's worth. That seems about right. All right, I can already tell this dough is very wet, so it needs more flour. I'll be right back. I'm gonna add in 1/4 cup, maybe a little less. I'll mix that in and then add more if I need to. And you gotta make sure you make lots of noise when you do this. Just make sure you just bang the bowl against the table. All right, let me get my surface floured. Now I just need to go ahead and knead it for the next 5 minutes or so. Knead it, fold it, push it. Okay, after 5 minutes, here is our dough ball. It looks nice. Let's go ahead. Let's take a clean mixing bowl. Let's add a little bit of canola oil to it. We want a neutral oil so that we don't influence the flavor. What I like to do whenever I have dough that's gonna rest, I like to put it in a bowl that has a little bit of oil at the bottom and just give it a little bit of a turn. And that way the oil gets on all the surfaces. And then I can just kind of move that around to coat the edges. And there we go. I'm gonna split this recipe up into 2 days because I'm busy this week and I'm gonna be busy for the rest of this week. Normally at this point, you would take this dough, you would put it off to the side somewhere relatively warm, let it double in size over the course of the next 1 hour or 2 hours, and then you would continue on with the recipe. I'm gonna put this in my fridge and let it do a slow fermentation, so a slow double in size. By the time 24 hours goes by in the fridge, this should have doubled in size. This is known as a slow fermentation or a slow proofing with bread, and it works. And some people may even argue that it produces better tasting results than a fast fermentation. I'm not here to get into the middle of that. I just want to save time. So I'm going to cover this whole thing with plastic, put it in the fridge. I will see you tomorrow. All right, like Michael Jackson, I got one glove on because we are going to make our cinnamon sugar filling. So I have a 1/2 cup of brown sugar here. That's gonna go in the bowl. 1/4 cup of flour, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 3 tablespoons of melted butter. Just like last time, mix by hand. And then last thing, I'm gonna add just a little bit, I'd say maybe a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Once things look clumpy like this, we're done. Here is our dough from yesterday. It has doubled in size in the fridge and we gotta punch it down. Ha! Wow. Okay, That thing has some firmness to it. This is some swole dough. My God. I mean, you can see the indent of my fist. Take some flour, dust our surface, flour the top as well. With our rolling pin, we are gonna roll this thing out. Now it's cold still, which means it's gonna be a little bit tougher to work this. But hey, I don't mind a little bit more arm workout. The goal with this dough is we're trying to roll it out into a 10-inch by 16-inch rectangle. I might go for a little bit wider. And that size just so happens to be maybe like an inch or two smaller than this entire cutting board. Okay, I got my shape. It's roughly what I want. What I am gonna do with my bench scraper is I'm gonna take off some of these edges out here that aren't quite as flat as I want. Take those off. And we got a couple places where it's a little bit uneven, so I'm gonna push that, try to get that to be about the same. Let me find the halfway point here. Let's see, this is 11 inches. Halfway point would be right here. Boom. There we go, along the middle. I'm gonna take our cinnamon and sugar filling, and I'm gonna put some in the middle of each slice. We have a little bit of sugar left over, so we'll just put that off to the side. Now, this is the hard part. I'm gonna tuck the sugar in down on one side. I probably should have done this when I laid the sugar out. I'm gonna take one side, and I'm going to roll the sugar inside the dough, and then if I can, just tuck that in as I continue to roll the dough. All right, once we reach the end, I'm gonna push down to help seal everything off. And if some sugar poops out of one side or the other, well, that's some sugar lost. And there we go. There's our sealed row of cinnamon sugar dough. Okay, we've rolled the dough over. I'm gonna push down slightly, and look at that. As a result of all this pushing and rolling, it's actually getting longer. We have our two rolls. We are going to take the ends and kind of pinch them together, and we're gonna start twisting. And we might need to lift while we twist. I'm gonna say that is good enough. Then we're gonna bring the two ends together. I wanna make it so that this end goes to this end at the bottom, and this end at the top goes to this end at the bottom, so that we maintain the spiral shape. And so what I'm actually gonna do is I'm actually gonna try to take one end of the bread rope and put it inside the other and pinch down, and then same thing here. Okay, and I think that actually looks pretty good. It is a little bit bigger on this side than this side, but hey, imperfect food is beautiful food. I have a prepared baking sheet. I'm gonna take our twisted bread, place it down on top, and this is gonna rise for the next hour in a warm place off to the side. 1 hour later, and the dough has actually evened out a little bit. You can still tell that this is the end where we connected everything, but it looks pretty good. So, my oven is set to 350. We are gonna bake this for 20 minutes. I'm gonna watch it. If it looks like it needs to go further, I'll let it go another 5 minutes, but we'll check on it at 20. Let's make good use of our time. Let's make our icing. So I'm going to add 1 cup of powdered sugar to a bowl, 1 tablespoon melted butter, a ½ teaspoon eyeballed of vanilla. Got half a lemon here. I'm gonna squeeze what I consider to be a good amount of juice into this. The recipe says 1 teaspoon. I'm going for maybe 2. And then 1½ tablespoons of milk that I am also going to just sort of eyeball. And then we whisk everything together. The reason why I'm playing it loose with the liquids is because this is about consistency. I like to start off with less liquid than I likely need and end up with something that's too thick, kind of like what I have right now, and just add more until I get the consistency that I'm looking for. And this is a pourable icing, not a cake frosting. So we want this to be pourable, but also thick. Right now is a good opportunity for a taste test because I want to know whether I should add more milk or more lemon juice. I'm gonna add more lemon juice. I like a lot of lemon juice in this style of icing because icing is just very, very sweet and a little overpowering. So some tang involved. For me, it helps out in eating a dessert this sweet. Okay, that's looking really nice. Okay, we're done. Fresh out of the oven, here it is. It went for about 23 minutes and it looks amazing. It looks golden brown on the outside Now we need to let the entire thing cool down. It's cooled down, let's talk about the most important part to this entire process, the baby. I decided not to just get any baby figurine. I went on Amazon and I bought these. These are metallic looking baby figurines in gold, green, and purple. And so for this recipe, we're gonna use this CeeLo green looking baby right here. Find a fold, I think this is gonna be the best one, where we can put the baby in. We'll do our best not to damage the rest of the cake. All right, there we go. Not the best cut, but we're about to cover it with icing. We are now going to pour it all over this cake and make a huge mess for me to clean up on this cutting board. I'm gonna stop right there. And basically what we've made is a gigantic cinnamon roll. Now this is another thing that isn't traditional. I have some toasted sesame seeds here. I'm gonna take a couple and just kind of sprinkle them all over. And this is another thing that I'm borrowing from Oaxacan Pan de Muerto. Now we really glam this cake up. We are gonna add the sprinkles. So take some green sprinkles and we're gonna add them here and here. Yellow sprinkles we're gonna add there and there. And the most beautiful sprinkles of all, purple sprinkles, we add there and there. And look at her, she's gorgeous. I know where the baby is, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut myself a slice over here. Now, let's give this a shot. Am I messy? I am. If I'm not careful, this is gonna turn into my lunch. It's sweet, but it's got a nice little kick of sourness from the lemon and the icing. You can taste the anise and it's not overpowering. This is fantastic. I am taking this to my Super Bowl party and people are gonna be very happy with this. So, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this and I hope you all learned from me so that you can go make some king cake for yourself. So, until we see each other again, go cook something amazing and I will see you next time.